Hey everybody, it's Mark again, and I want to show you something. I've been thinking about this clock for a while, and I when I get something stuck in my head, I gotta keep on thinking about it, keep on thinking about it. But older clocks, older movements, uh, to me, are easier to work on than a lot of the newer movements, especially like a lot of people don't like working on Herbert Hur. There are some clocks, such as that 8 day Oompa Loompa bell ringer cuckoo clock, that was a pain in my and Ron Rosencrantz' butt to work on. The way it was designed, the way it was cheaply designed, in some manners or another. Um, but to me, the count wheel type movements are easier to work on if you understand them. But this video is strictly just to show you a a type of movement that is extremely easy to work on. And when you see it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This antique railroad style cuckoo clock is missing this piece right here, but with me coloring this in, you wouldn't have noticed that it was missing that piece without me telling you. Um, it's a chalet style railroad cuckoo clock. It's also missing the finials that belong on the bottom, and the hands are plastic. However, if you look at the movement, the bird itself is wood. It's got the articulated wings. You notice the movement. It's got this DRGM number on it, and that is a cheap way of pre-patenting the movement. It has where you can take the birch and crutch assembly out without taking the movement apart. I think they quit that in the late 1930s, early 1940s. It's a count wheel movement, but I want you to see something. Count these: 1, 2, 3, 4 nuts here. 1, 2, 3, 4 nuts here. But if you notice really closely, there's a split in the movement right here, and there's a split in the movement in between these two nuts. In other words, I can work on the time section. I could take every one of these time wheels out and not disturb the strike section, or vice versa. I could take every one of the strike wheels out and not disturb the time section. I think it's not one of these things where somebody screwed up and broke it. It was designed that way, and that is why that DRGM letters are right there, because it was a patent pending thing, and apparently whoever designed it quit the cuckoo clock manufacturing business, or they chose not to make them this way for whatever reason. I think it's a great idea myself. And if the cuckoo quail clocks were designed this way, how much easier would it be to work on them? The older movements, which are wooden plate movements, were designed to where you can work on the time side or you can work on the strike side, because they have a panel that slips out and you can just work on one side or the other. Same concept. There's a split right here in this movement, and I thought it was on a cuckoo quail clock, so I'm like, or I thought it was on a bigger movement, but it's not. It's on this movement right here. And there's a split between these two nuts, and then there's a split between these two nuts. Unfortunately, where they put that nut, they had to put it there because of the birch and crutch assembly, which, again, if I take this screw out, I could take the birch and crutch assembly out without taking the nuts out. Where the newer movements, you have to take and loosen up the nuts to take the birch and spread the plates apart to take the birch and crutch assemblies out. Again, it's only a guess to say that they quit doing this in the 1930s, early 40s, but I have count wheel movements that they quit making these things in the 1950s that have the birch and crutch assembly. It doesn't have this plate here. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you one. Her, 1950s cuckoo quail movement. The gong fell out, but anyway, the birch and crutch assembly is stamped in the plates. This is not a cast plate. This is a stamped plate in the birch and crutch assembly. In order for me to take this out, I would have to loosen this nut and this nut, spread the plates apart to get the birch and crutch assembly out. That's not how the other movement that I showed you is designed. The other movement is a cast plate, where this is a stamped plate. The stamp plate process is they have a big sheet of metal, and it goes into a machine that has this design of this plate with these holes in it. If I was to take all this crap off, and if I was to take this thing all apart, just the plate itself, this being the front plate, this being the rear plate, it goes into this machine and it stamps it out of this flat metal. As time goes on, the movements are not as thick as they were back when they made cast plates. This movement is approximately 1.5 millimeters thick. Here's a regular 25 one-day movement made in 1983, because it has a 25 and then the two-digit year 83, and it is going to be about 1 millimeter thick. If I can get to a place where I can measure it. 1 millimeter thick. So as time marches on, the plates are getting thinner, and that's why bushings wear out faster. Here's another Hubbard-Hur movement. I don't know when it was made. Hubbard-Hur never did put dates on their movements. But I'm going to say that it was made close to the 1950s because it is approximately 1.5 millimeters thick, just like this one is. We're going to measure this one again. Again, 1.5 millimeters thick. So, again, I believe this was made around the 1950s. As time marches on, it gets thinner. Getting back to this clock, I don't know whether I can get my calipers in there or not to measure it without taking the thing apart. My first measurement is about 2.5. .4, 2.5 millimeters thick. My 1908 GK cuckoo quail clock is 3.5 millimeters thick. So again, this is a cast plate where they have a mold, they pour copper, they pour whatever these things are made out of. I don't believe it's all copper into this mold, and then they made the birch and crutch assembly, bridge assembly, separate from the rear plate movement, where the newer movements, the stamped movements, this is not there. This plate is not there. The birch and crutch assembly, you can't take it out separately from the rest of the movement unless you loosen this nut and spread the plates apart. But I just wanted to show you that this movement is a really cool movement, and it was designed so you could work on the time side and then put the plate for the time side back on, and then you could take the strike side plate off and work on the strike side section. Now the front plate is one unit. It don't have the separation, but the rear plate is designed to take off the plates separately. Again, I hope y'all like this video. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me some comments, even if it's to say, hello, Mark, how you doing? And may God bless each and every one of you. I wish I knew who made this. I bought this thing off of Goodwill a while back. I probably paid, I don't know, $75 to include shipping, but it came with weights. It came with a pendulum. But anyway, it's a pretty cool clock. May God bless each and every one of you. I was editing my video, and I was trying to find a clock that looked like mine, because this clock, it's got really tall, really steeped roof on it, where a typical railroad cuckoo clock doesn't have that steep of a roof. A typical railroad cuckoo clock roof is maybe that steep. And so I was trying to figure out whether or not this would have a topper on it, and I'm missing it. I thought I had a picture of the cover page of this book. There it is. This is a reprint of a book from 1904. St. Louis and CW Company, St. Louis, Missouri, wholesale only. Now this clock right here looks just like my clock. It has that part I told you was missing. It has these pieces. It has this that I told you was missing on my clock. Look exactly like my clock, except for it should have this kind of a topper on it. And we'll see what it says. It says it's a cuckoo clock, and it's got dimensions, but because I didn't take very good pictures of it, and it also says it's a GK clock. George Cool, GK. But George Cool purchased his clocks. I don't have this pendulum for it. Purchased his clocks from different companies in Germany and sold his clocks. I got rid of the picture, but I didn't take a very good picture of this. I'm going to have to, I believe Fred Reese has got this book, and I'm going to have him send me a better picture of it. But there is the clock. 1904. And this book also, I know this is a railroad cuckoo clock, but it's calling it a cuckoo clock. And I know that this one over here is a railroad cuckoo clock, but it's calling it a cuckoo clock. So I still say that. And this one over here is a railroad cuckoo clock, and they're calling it a cuckoo clock. I still say that, that this one right here is a railroad cuckoo clock. Now I'm going to see if there's holes in the roof for this topper of my clock. The clock is extremely dirty, but you will see that there are holes where the topper would go. So either I'm going to have to carve, or I'm going to have to get Steve Fowler to carve me a topper for this clock. And this, I need to get this fixed. But now I know that this clock requires a topper, and it's missing these pieces here and these pieces over here. But now I know that this clock requires a topper, and I know who sold it, and I know approximately the date it was made, 1904.